Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso. Since assuming leadership in September 2022, President Traore has embarked on an ambitious journey to redefine Burkina Faso's socio-economic landscape. Recognizing the historical challenges that have hindered the nation's progress, he has prioritized initiatives aimed at restoring national pride, economic independence, and social cohesion. One of the most significant milestones under President Traore's leadership is the inauguration of Burkina Faso's first gold refinery. Launched on November 23, 2023, in Ouagadougou, this state-of-the-art facility is poised to revolutionize the country's gold industry. With a production capacity of 150 tons of 99.99% pure gold annually, approximately 400 kilograms per day. The refinery is expected to produce its first 22-carat gold bars within 11 months. This initiative not only signifies technological advancement, but also represents a strategic move towards economic self-reliance. President Traore emphasized the importance of this development, stating, "It will no longer be a question of taking our gold abroad for refining. We will refine it locally, and we will know the real content of the raw gold that comes out." That's very important. Beyond economic implications, the establishment of the gold refinery serves a critical role in national security. By curbing the illicit flow of gold, which has historically fueled militancy and insurgency in the region, the government aims to cut off significant funding sources for militant groups. President Traore has been vocal about the link between unregulated gold trade and the proliferation of extremist activities, asserting the need for stringent measures to protect the nation's resources and citizens. In a significant diplomatic development, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for West Africa, Will Stevens, visited Ouagadougou on May 27, 2025. Representing President Donald Trump's administration, Stevens conveyed a message of renewed commitment to building a pragmatic relationship based on mutual respect and sovereignty. He stated, "We can collaborate with each other, work together to face challenges and improve our relations." This visit marked a turning point in Burkina Faso-U.S. relations, especially in light of previous criticisms from U.S. Marine Corps General Michael Langley. General Langley had accused President Traore of misusing gold revenues, a claim that sparked widespread backlash and was perceived by many as emblematic of unwarranted foreign interference. The subsequent diplomatic engagement underscores a shift towards more equitable international partnerships. President Traore's leadership extends beyond national borders, resonating with broader Pan-African ideals. He has consistently advocated for African nations to assert control over their resources and destinies. At the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg, he challenged the prevailing narrative of African dependency, questioning, "How can Africa, which has so much wealth, become the poorest continent in the world today?" His stance has inspired a wave of solidarity across the continent, encouraging other nations to pursue policies that prioritize local beneficiation and economic sovereignty. President Ibrahim Traore's tenure represents a transformative era for Burkina Faso, a period marked by bold initiatives, strategic reforms, and a steadfast commitment to national sovereignty. His leadership serves as a beacon for other African nations striving for self-determination and equitable development. Stay tuned to Intervlog as we continue to explore the impactful policies and visionary leadership shaping the future of Burkina Faso and the African continent. Cooperation between Burkina Faso and the United States. We want mutual respect, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traore. At the initiative of President Donald Trump, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for West Africa Will Stevens visited the Burkinabe capital on Tuesday, May 27, 2025. In the evening, he was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Cooperation, and Burkinabe Abroad. The American envoy said he came to reiterate the United States' commitment to rebuilding strong cooperation with Burkina Faso. I come today with a message from President Donald Trump, which is to work together to build a pragmatic relationship based on mutual respect and respect for each country's sovereignty. We can collaborate with each other, work together to face challenges and improve our relations, he said after the audience. With the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the aim was to explore different areas and opportunities for cooperation to consolidate relations between the two partners, with several prospects for cooperation, including the strengthening of trade relations and cooperation on the security front. Minister Karamoko Jean-Marie Traore welcomed this approach by the American president, who understood the need to send an emissary to the field to obtain first-hand information. The head of Burkinabe diplomacy also provided clarifications on the vision and principles that now guide the Burkinabe state in its cooperation relations, maintaining that the Burkinabe authorities are committed to building strategic partnerships that enable the building of a sovereign nation. As Burkinabe, as Sahelians and as Africans, we want mutual respect for our sovereignty. Africa is a continent like any other, and Africans are human beings like any other. We want a change of perspective and interpretation, for us to understand each other, to avoid frustrating discourses, and to build our relations on an egalitarian principle, the Burkinabe head of diplomacy suggested to the American envoy, while welcoming the fact that the Trump administration is beginning to understand this vision. On the security issue, Minister Traore expressed regret that in this context, certain countries, including the United States, based on principles and refusing to acknowledge the realities on the ground, prevent countries suffering from militancy from acquiring war material and equipment. In response, the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, in office since January 2025, promised to personally invest in unblocking this situation and to enable significant progress in the fight against militants and its financing in the sub-region. Asked how he reacted to General Langley's comments on Burkina Faso, which have sparked strong reactions around the world, the American envoy suggested that he was there to send a positive message, to restore mutual trust, and to stimulate a new dynamic of cooperation between Ouagadougou and Washington. In May 2025, U.S. Marine Corps General Michael Langley, commander of U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, issued a stark warning about the escalating threat of militants' networks in Africa's Sahel region, particularly highlighting Burkina Faso. He described the area as the epicenter of militants, noting the proliferation of groups affiliated with ISIS and Al-Qaeda amid governmental instability, especially in Burkina Faso. And he accused Captain Traore of enriching himself with Burkina Faso's gold money instead of fighting the militants. These comments sparked a significant backlash from Pan-African communities worldwide who perceived them as emblematic of Western interference and a disregard for African sovereignty. Burkina Faso has experienced significant political upheaval in recent years. In January 2022, a military coup ousted President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, citing the government's failure to contain Islamist insurgencies. Later that year, in September, another coup brought Captain Ibrahim Traore to power. Traore, Africa's youngest leader at 37, has since positioned himself as a proponent of Pan-Africanism and has sought to reduce Western influence in the country. Under Traore's leadership, Burkina Faso has expelled French forces and aligned more closely with Russia, welcoming its mercenaries and miners. This shift reflects a broader trend in the Sahel region, where countries like Mali and Niger have also distanced themselves from Western allies and sought new partnerships. General Langley's remarks and immediate reactions. General Langley's comments, emphasizing that Captain Traore is enriching himself with Burkina Faso's gold money instead of fighting the militants, were met with swift and widespread backlash. In Ouagadougou, thousands rallied in support of the ruling military, displaying anti-American sentiment and solidarity with Russia. The protests were fueled by Langley's accusations against their captain Ibrahim Traore, whom he accused of misusing gold reserves. Pan-African communities worldwide perceived Langley's statements as emblematic of Western interference and a disregard for African sovereignty. Many viewed the comments as an attempt to undermine African leadership and justify continued Western military presence on the continent. The role of media and propaganda. The media landscape further complicated matters. Burkina Faso had previously suspended international media outlets, like Voice of America and the BBC, over their coverage of the insurgency and alleged human rights abuses. This suppression of dissenting voices created an environment where alternative narratives, often propagated by Russian-backed media campaigns, gained traction. These campaigns portrayed leaders like Traore as heroic figures resisting Western imperialism, resonating with Pan-African audiences disillusioned by decades of perceived exploitation. A notable example includes a viral AI-generated video featuring a fabricated R. Kelly praising President Traore, part of a broader media campaign fostering a cult of personality around him. Such content is indicative of Russian-led efforts to elevate Traore's profile and spread anti-Western sentiment across Africa. Pan-African solidarity and anti-imperialist sentiments. General Langley also highlighted the role of misinformation and disinformation campaigns, particularly those orchestrated by Russia and China, in destabilizing the region and undermining U.S. efforts. He emphasized the need for renewed collaboration with regional partners to counter these threats and restore stability. Pan-African organizations, such as the Black Alliance for Peace and the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, have long advocated for the withdrawal of foreign military forces from the continent. They argue that true sovereignty and stability can only be achieved through self-determination and unity among African nations. The recent formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, comprising Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, underscores this sentiment. The alliance represents a mutual defense pact aimed at countering external threats and promoting regional cooperation. The media war ignited by General Langley's comments reflects deeper tensions over sovereignty, foreign influence, and the battle for narrative control in Africa. As Western powers reassess their roles on the continent, emerging alliances and shifting loyalties signal a new era in African geopolitics. Russia has capitalized on anti-French sentiment and the withdrawal of Western forces in the Sahel. Through military engagement and media campaigns, Russia seeks to expand its influence in the region. The deployment of private military contractors such as the Wagner Group and the establishment of new military cooperation agreements with countries like Niger exemplify this strategy. China, while less involved militarily, has focused on economic engagement through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. By funding infrastructure development without attaching political conditions, China has attracted many African leaders seeking alternatives to Western models of development. General Langley's comments on Burkina Faso ignited a media war between Pan-African communities and the U.S., reflecting deeper tensions over sovereignty, foreign influence, and the battle for narrative control in Africa. The reactions underscore the growing desire among African nations to assert their independence and chart their own course, free from external interference. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the importance of mutual respect, genuine partnership, and understanding cannot be overstated. In the annals of modern geopolitics, no country has wielded the tools of misinformation, propaganda, and fabricated pretexts with as much global consequence as the United States. From the Middle East to Africa, Washington has demonstrated an uncanny ability to cloak imperial ambitions in the language of democracy, freedom, and justice. The 2003 invasion of Iraq, premised on a blatant lie about weapons of mass destruction (WMDs), stands as a grim monument to this strategy. Today, echoes of that same playbook are being heard in West Africa, where the U.S. military, through voices like General Michael Langley, has launched unfounded accusations against Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traore, alleging he is enriching himself with the country's gold rather than using it to fight. These claims are not only devoid of credible evidence, but also strikingly reminiscent of the prelude to war in Iraq. The pattern is clear. Construct a narrative of corruption, amplify it through global media, and use it to justify intervention or undermine sovereign leadership. For Africans, particularly in Burkina Faso, the lesson is urgent and simple. Beware of foreign fingers pointing in judgment. The path from Baghdad to Ouagadougou may be long, but the tactics remain frighteningly familiar. The false claim of weapons of mass destruction. In the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 attacks, the United States embarked on a global war on framing itself as a force for justice and security. Yet behind this moral veneer lay a different agenda. In 2003, under President George W. Bush, the U.S. invaded Iraq, citing the imminent threat posed by Saddam Hussein's alleged stockpile of weapons of mass destruction. Secretary of State Colin Powell presented this claim before the United Nations Security Council in February 2003, showcasing satellite images and citing sources that were later proven to be grossly inaccurate or outright fabricated. No WMDs were ever found in Iraq. The central premise of the war was a lie, one that cost hundreds of thousands of lives and destroyed a nation. Multiple investigations later confirmed that intelligence was deliberately manipulated to support the decision to go to war. The CIA and other intelligence agencies cherry-picked data, ignoring contradictory evidence. Meanwhile, major media outlets like the New York Times became complicit, publishing stories based on anonymous government sources that fueled public support for the invasion. Journalists like Judith Miller played a key role in legitimizing the false narrative. The machinery of deception was vast and effective. By the time the truth emerged, Iraq lay in ruins. The consequences of the Iraq War were catastrophic. More than 200,000 Iraqi civilians lost their lives, according to various estimates. Infrastructure was decimated, sectarian violence soared, and the vacuum left by Saddam Hussein's fall gave rise to extremist groups like ISIS. Meanwhile, American corporations profited immensely from reconstruction contracts and oil access. Halliburton, a company formerly led by Vice President Dick Cheney, secured billions in deals. Iraq's suffering became a business opportunity for U.S. interests, exposing the moral bankruptcy of the invasion. The global community largely condemned the invasion. France, Germany, and even Canada refused to support the war. The United Nations declined to authorize it. Years later, American and international voices admitted the war was a mistake. Colin Powell himself referred to the WMD presentation as a blot on his record. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan called the war illegal. History has judged the Iraq invasion as one of the most significant foreign policy failures of the 21st century. A war built on lies, with consequences that still reverberate today. Captain Ibrahim Traore emerged as a symbol of hope and defiance in the heart of West Africa. In October 2022, he took power in Burkina Faso through a popular military transition, vowing to fight and reclaim national sovereignty. Young, resolute, and Pan-African in his ideology, Traore quickly became a lightning rod for both admiration and hostility. To many Africans, he represents the spirit of Thomas Sankara reborn, a man of the people determined to lift his country from decades of economic dependence and foreign manipulation. His government has emphasized agricultural revitalization, gold resource control, national pride, and the rejection of imperial domination. His bold stance, suspending military agreements with France, withdrawing from ECOWAS alongside Mali and Niger, and resisting U.S. interference, has alarmed Western powers. Not because it threatens Burkinabe democracy, but because it threatens their control. The accusation by General Michael Langley. In a move as audacious as it is predictable, U.S. General Michael Langley, head of AFRICOM, accused Captain Traore of enriching himself with Burkina Faso's gold instead of using it to fight. Yet no audit report or evidence was provided to support this grave allegation. Like the infamous WMD claims in Iraq, Langley's statement seems crafted to sow doubt, create division, and lay the groundwork for international condemnation. The irony is chilling. While the US has for decades siphoned wealth and manipulated African leaders for its benefit, it now points a finger at a young African president working to ensure that Burkina Faso's gold remains in African hands. The deeper issue is not gold. It is control. Traore's Burkina Faso has taken assertive steps to reclaim national wealth and reimagine governance based on dignity, justice, and self-reliance. In doing so, he has awakened a powerful Pan-African consciousness, one that threatens the foundations of neo-colonial hegemony. Alongside Mali and Niger, Traore is part of a new alliance that refuses to bow to the diktats of Washington or Paris. This resistance has become contagious, inspiring youth movements and igniting debates across Africa. For Washington, the threat is the spread of sovereign leadership. Burkina is rich, not just in gold, but in uranium, manganese, agricultural potential, and youth energy. The recent surge in Western interest in the Sahel isn't about human rights, it's about access to these resources. As the world transitions to green energy and technology, Africa's rare earth minerals and gold have become essential. General Langley's accusations must be viewed through this lens, an attempt to discredit a leader whose policies challenge exploitative mining contracts, demand resource sovereignty, and redirect profits toward local development. As the African proverb says, "Quand les éléphants se battent, c'est l'herbe qui souffre." When elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Burkina Faso must refuse to be the grass trampled beneath imperial feet. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlogs.
Nti abusha General Henry in some obeka and finally Donald Trump etumi etubofo ama wakọ Burkina Faso na okoshia omo foreign affairs minister na one no ehwehwe nkomo o share say opese one no strengthen the international relationship no na omo issue sa General Henry ne comment o make ye no o kira say omso omko na so omko dura omo de ho announcement ebeko na this time around no Africa ne ya adwe say bibiara na ebeba ne yenso ye be respond back because say na utie video ni mu no Iraq de ya omo man first accusation na omo ye omko invade Iraq ema afede Iraq bibia ewo ho no miwa na ye first message the same thing na happening ewo Muammar Gaddafi abreso ewo Libya ama Libya so aye bibia ewo ho no and this time around no the same thing na African youth no so no bebre na so no enso spark abra General Henry ebe kasa ensamo no in fact nipa bebre na videos bia na watch you issue AI say carry 50 cent Akon enema ademo omo abo enyom ede ama Ibrahim Traore any ade until this time around so omo promote propaganda yes you be promote until ni na ne say e wo say ye hwe na ye masa ade no ye regret na ni na no ekofom na the right message the right information no and eba and in all na nkasa no Africa is for Africans and United States is for United States, France for France, Europe for Europe, Germany for Germany. So say obia enhwe na ondi ne dokono unless ebia ya kasha say ye hia emwa bia because near Africa for mono say sankofo wem if you say mom wo ho emaya ankanya no say Africa every and trust me nkofo wem no me say ye betumi age omwadi anase bibia ewo ho no enam se mame ho adwen kire comment section no aso no we mother Africa nti se unya unsubscribe to channel na ebe so se obe subscribe in fact ye bro for ne de enye but ye try say ye be use some other content na yes ye de makoma be ne de share na at the end of the video no then ya summarize bibia ewo ya nkasa ye local language makra